Good day, class. I thought I'd give a brief week 9 lecture video. I hope everybody's doing really well on this Monday morning is when I'm actually recording this. I hope everybody had a very relaxing, I hope not too stressful weekend. I know y'all had Essay 3 that turn in on Sunday. Remember Essay 4, your process analysis essay, is going to be due this coming Sunday, the 13th of March. So I know some of y'all have been sending drafts of these last 3 essays to me in Smart Thinking. That's good. Generally, your grade improves by sending me in Smart Thinking multiple drafts over the course of the the days and weeks leading up to the deadlines. After the 13th, though, we're going to get more involved with a big chunk of your overall semester grade, which is going to be the research project. Basically, it's a research paper. There's 2 other components to the research paper. We're going to talk about one here momentarily called the research paper proposal, and go over that a little bit more. And then there's the annotated bibs, which is really it's a bigger assignment, but I'm sort of breaking it up in sections so it doesn't seem like it's overwhelming. And that's going to be dealing with your 6 scholarly sources. So we will probably talk a little bit more about the annotated bib during week 10 lecture. Just some housekeeping things. Last Thursday, midterm grades went out. So if you have a C or higher, pretty much in any class, because all grades needed to be turned into the college last Thursday. So if you have a 70 or higher in all your classes, you're probably not going to get an email or a phone call or anything like that. If you have a D or lower in any of your classes, you probably will get an email or a call or something of that nature wanting to know what's going on. Do you want to stick the next 7 weeks out and see if you can improve that grade? Do you want to withdraw from a particular class at this point? So on and so forth. So keep that in mind, because we really have less than 8 weeks left when it relates to our semester. And this particular purpose here in the class, really the next 8 weeks, about 40% of your grade is going to be determined by the proposal, the annotated bibs, and the research paper. And of course, we have one more quiz 6, which deals with MLA documentation, citations, works cited, direct quotes, paraphrasing, summarizing, which we'll talk about that as it gets closer. That's really going to happen after spring break in April. And then you have a ProctorU final exam, which is basically going to be your essay 6. It's going to be, you got 60 minutes to write an essay dealing with ProctorU. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as it gets closer to the final week of the course. Some things that you probably want to keep in mind is to read about using sources and writing a research paper in your e-textbook. So you want to read pages 17 through 19, and you want to read pages 134 through 140, really by the end of this week if possible. That will sort of give you an overview of writing a research paper. It will talk a little bit more about using sources, all of this that we're going to talk a little bit more in detail as we move along these next few weeks. So you just want to be mindful of that as we move along. The other thing is next Wednesday, I believe. Yes, next Wednesday is March 16th. We're going to do a virtual library orientation. We're going to have our embedded librarian, Miss Lorna Reed. Hopefully you've been watching some of her videos that we've been posting up and moving around on the page. Those will be helpful as it relates to your research paper moving ahead as well. But we're going to do sort of a full-blown library orientation. It's going to be online. It's going to be virtual, either through Blackboard Collaborate or Microsoft Teams. Once I really narrow down a particular time, obviously, if you have a time in mind that you think you can really attend these online, I would like to know what time works best for everybody. Try to accommodate everybody as much as we can. Now, obviously, our schedules are different. We're usually 7:30 to 6, but some of us have classes and that type stuff. So we may do sort of a time frame of maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock for that. So if you can attend, great, attend, especially if you don't know how to use Galileo, how to find e-books, e-journals, how to check out books, that type deal as it relates to your research paper, because you would need to at least get 4 sources from your library. Whether that's a public library or whether that's the college library, you need to have at least 2 scholarly books, 2 scholarly journal articles, and 2 scholarly websites as it relates to your particular research paper topic, which we're going to look at some of those topics here momentarily. So if you can make it next Wednesday on the 16th, and again, I'm going to send out invites to your email as it gets closer to the 16th of the time. We will record it. So if you can't make it for whatever reason, you can always go back and watch how to use Galileo and some of the databases that we have to help you with research. Otherwise, that's some of the bigger housekeeping things I wanted to clarify. And I want to switch gears here and share screens here momentarily. So 1 minute here. We can share some screens. Okay, so we're basically in your weekly folders, and as you can tell, if you look recently, I sort of went ahead and opened up the rest of the folders. If you click on something now, there's really nothing there. I will have moved some stuff over there as we move along. But if you look we're dealing with big chunks of periods now, right? 2 weeks, sometimes longer. I do have due dates of when particular things are going to be due. Notice week 13, April 3rd through April 10th is spring break. There's nothing technically or formally need to be turned in at that point. What I would suggest is, especially if you're not going anywhere, maybe to get ahead with your research paper project so you're not having to do so much when we come back. Because when we come back from spring break, it's really going to be a rush because we're only going to have about 3 weeks left. So as you can tell, we have our last annotated bib due on that Monday, which is the 11th when we sort of come back. And then we have the rest of the 11th, week of the 11th, week of the 18th, week of the 25th, and just a few days in the first week of May. So really we have 3.5 weeks once we come back from spring break that everything has to be completed. So as you can tell, you probably want to work smarter and not harder. You really can't wait until the last minute to do some of these components to the research paper because they're time sensitive. Like with the annotated bibs, they actually deal with your sources, and you can't wait to the 11th to do all three of these because the first one's going to be due on the 27th. It deals with your two web sources. The second one's going to be due on the 3rd, right when spring break really starts. Deals with your two journal articles, and then our last one when we come back. So you can't wait. You have to actually go out and do the research when it details your particular topic. So just keep that in mind. This particular the last half of this class doesn't really work too well for procrastinators. So if you the previous 7 or 8 weeks been sort of procrastinating and waiting to Saturday or Sunday to do stuff, that's going to sort of change for you moving forward, or it should, because if not, you're going to start seeing your grade really slip Sunday to Sunday. As I said in the past, 1 0 is bad enough. It drops you 20 points. 2 zeros will drop you 40. So if you look at a 100 scale, if you have 100 in a class and get 2 zeros, you got a 60 now. And if you get one more 0, you're basically at a 40. So I would say 2 zeros will put you at a D. 3 or more zeros will fail you. So if you get a 0, if you get let's say you get 3 zeros right here with these annotated bibs, you're done. You're already at a 40, and there's probably no chance for you at that point with 3.5 weeks left in the class to be able to pull it up, even if you made 100 on everything else after that, because with each 0 you make, you have to make at least 5 100s per 0. So if you made 3 zeros, that means you need to make 15 100s. We don't have 15 assignments left the last 3.5 weeks. We don't have 15 assignments left now. So if you look, Essay 4, like I said, due this Sunday, that's 1 assignment. Proposal due the following Sunday, that's on the 20th. So that's 2. We have our series of annotated bibs, 3, 4, 5. The actual final quiz, 6. The research paper, 7. And then the ProctorU final, 8. So we have 8 assignments left. These last 8 are really going to sort of determine, not to say that the last 8 weeks didn't help determining your grade. It did, because you really want to do as well as you can up to the first, the midpoint of any class. Because then if you have something going on in your life, getting a bad grade on something won't drastically, drop you down to a failing grade. But at this point, if you have a 3 in the class, or a 45 in the class, or if you're borderline there at a 70, depending on what you make now, is really going to be more important, than it was maybe week 2, because everything is going to start weighing a little bit more, and we just don't have time to pull grades up if you don't do so well. So let's go ahead and look. Let me bring up here our assignment checklist. Just 1 second. Remember, this is where you can find the reading list for your e-text and when assignments are due. So hopefully you're using that as well. Just looking here. Okay. So going back to our lessons, I'm going to go ahead and click in here. If you look in your rhetoric and composition folder, like I said, probably within another week or so, some of this stuff, I'm just not going to have as many folders up here anymore, because we've already covered the basics, how to write an essay. But I would really pay close attention to this compare and contrast, cause and effect, classification, division, and definition, because these particular rhetorical modes can be helpful. You can find information in your e-text. I think if we click back out, there's some information about those page numbers and that type of stuff, especially in the reading list. But these could be really helpful as it relates to you writing and organizing your research paper. if we click out to the grammar, we pretty much have completed all the grammar quizzes. Like I said, there's only one really quiz that's left. It doesn't really deal so much with grammar. It deals with quotations and that type of stuff. I have some information in here about how to integrate quotations, part 1, part 2. We will talk about that as it gets closer for you to really start drafting the paper. But these would be sort of the two things you want to sort of keep in mind about this grammar folder. The rest of it, again, these are the videos of Lorna that if you haven't watched them, they're really short for the most part. I would try to watch these because they will be helpful as you get closer to doing some research and to actually drafting your research paper. Short-term, long-term assignments. Essay 4 topics, I talked about that in a previous video. Hopefully you watched that video from last week or the week before. It talks a little bit more about the process analysis essay. We have the topics, we have the Dropbox. Here's some more information about process. Essay 5 is the research paper. So if you look, I have some information about the proposal. We'll look at that here momentarily. Proposal Dropbox. And then as time moves on, there's going to be some stuff about the annotated bib and the final exam. And I want to just bring this up. Yeah, here's some final exam information. We'll talk a little bit more about that as time moves along. This is your final quiz, the study guide. Well, it's the study guide to the final quiz. It's not an actual quiz that you're going to be taking. But I will give you some answers. I will give you the answers to these as it gets closer for you to take your final quiz. The final quiz is not going to be nearly as long. It's going to be 10 questions, basically true, false, but it's going to cover, pretty much anything that's on this particular study guide is going to be fair game. Or anything that's in the, integrating a quotation part 1 or part 2 that's in your grammar folder is going to be fair game. Or anything that you read in your e-text that deals with documentation and citation or research papers as it relates to MLA format is going to be fair game. But again, I will give you the answers to these before you take that quiz so you have something really to go by. I would try to do this particular study guide on my own first because if you just wait for me to give you the answers, that's not really studying because you may not know how to approach the actual quiz. So just be wary of that. Again, we'll talk about essay 6. There's a little bit more to that as time moves on. Probably after spring break or so, maybe before spring break, we'll talk a little bit more about essay 6. But let's sort of stick with our agenda here. So let's pull up essay 5, which is basically your research paper topics. And I'm not going to read through all of these because I know you can read. I'm just going to show you some of the guidelines, parameters that we have to, that you're going to have to follow. Now, this particular research paper is not going to be due until April 28th, which is a Thursday. The whole purpose of doing the proposal and the annotated bibs, those 2 additional assignments will help lead you into drafting and finalizing this research paper. As you can tell, it's the same format. You need to have MLA 9 double space times New Roman 12. The length of this particular research paper needs to be 6 pages or 1,500 words plus the works cited, no more, no less. So you need to have 6 scholarly sources overall. We talked about those earlier. 2 scholarly websites, 2 scholarly books, and 2 scholarly journal articles. These are your 10 topics. Now, if you don't like any of these 10 topics, or you have something else that you want to write your research paper on because you're more interested in that, just make sure that you can write it with 6 pages in mind or 1,500 words, and you can find 6 scholarly sources that you need, the 2 websites, the 2 books, and the 2 journal articles. If you can't find research on your particular topic, you need to pick a different topic. The proposal is going to help you and me sort of determine, did you pick a really good topic? Because that's sort of like the first green light or the check light or whatever you want to call it. It's going to tell me about your particular topic a little bit more as we look at that assignment sheet here momentarily. And it's really sort of that, okay, yes, I put a check mark by it. You can proceed on to the annotated bib. Because what's going to happen is whatever topic that you choose, and you probably want to choose it obviously before the 20th of March, because that's when the proposal is due. You're going to be married to that topic until the 28th of April. You don't want to divorce it. You don't want to flip-flop topics, because that's just going to be more time wasted. Because if you already found research on the previous topic and you pick a totally different topic, now you have to scrap all that stuff and go back out and try to find research on the new topic. So I would say by March 20th, you should have a topic chosen, whether it's one of these or a different one. I would say if you have a different topic in mind, you probably need to go ahead and send me an email and clear that topic before the 20th. Because nothing is more frustrating than to start writing on a topic that you didn't get cleared by your instructor, and you can't find any research on it, at least scholarly research, and you can't get past the third page, right? Because this needs to be 6 pages or 1,500 words, no more, no less. If it's less, you're going to be losing points. I can go ahead and tell you that right now. If it's not 1,500 words or 6 pages, you're going to be losing a good bit of points. How many points? I'll let you know that as we move along, but it's not going to be pretty, especially if you got other issues going on with quotations, documentation, the works cited page, and just basic grammar stuff. This is another essay. If you haven't used Smart Thinking and sent me drafts, I would definitely do as many drafts to me in Smart Thinking leading up until the 28th. Otherwise, your grade could suffer, especially if this is sort of your first time writing a college level English research paper. It's a little bit different than those so-called high school research papers. There's a little bit more involved, and you don't want to get caught up in thinking, well, this is just like a research paper I did in 11th grade. No, it's probably going to be a little bit different than that. I can tell you it's going to be a little bit different than that. So just be wary of this. The topics that I have listed here, for the most part, have been really current and relevant in our conscience, meaning the news, meaning the media within the last 15 to 20 years. You will find more than 6 scholarly sources on these 10 topics if you know what you're doing. So again, the proposal is not going to make sense until you actually pick a research paper topic. That's why I say probably before the 20th, you need to go ahead and narrow down a research paper topic, because when we look at the research paper proposal, you would need to have a topic in mind to be able to do that assignment. So we're going to look at that here right now. So here's the actual proposal instructions with a model example. So if you follow that example, you should be pretty good. So this one, again, the length needs to be 2 pages or 500 words. It doesn't need to be that long. It needs to be Microsoft Word. Yeah, it needs to be in Microsoft Word, Times New Roman 12, double space. It needs to be MLA 9 format. This is the particular model example, and I'm going to space this down here momentarily so you can kind of look at that here. I give you guidance or guidelines what needs to go where. But basically, after you pick your research paper topic, you're answering these 4 questions, but you're giving me, about a paragraph or so answer, give or take. I mean, it may not be as long as a paragraph, but some of them may. You have question 1 here. What is your thesis or research question? The thing about your topic you want to find out. Your topic must be opinionated and well phrased and formulated, rather than a petty observation about your topic. So granted, the final research paper is not due until Thursday, the 28th of April. So your particular thesis statement is probably going to be, modified and changed between now and then, and that's fine. But I need to know what you plan on doing as it relates to the main idea of your entire paper. Number two, how do you plan on supporting this thesis or research question? Number three, what 6 outside scholarly sources do you plan on using? What is the best source at this stage? What makes it the best source? What sources do you think you might need? Granted, number three may be sort of a shorter answer for you, because unless you just went ahead and went to the library and you've already got all 6 of your sources, you're probably not going to be able to tell me too much about your sources at this point. What I would suggest, at least name 1 or 2. If you can give me more the better, because then possibly I can give you feedback on some of the sources that you may be using. I might know, I may not know. I might have heard of the author or something and say, hey, look in this direction for additional. But I need to know that you're actually sort of taking this thing seriously, and you started to at least look up 1 or 2 sources by the 20th of this month. And then, of course, the fourth question is, what's the whole point of this topic? So really, number 4 is like, why should we care about your topic? If somebody, overseas picked up your paper and, read it, what are they getting out of it? What do they learn? What do they understand? Besides, hey, I got to do a research paper because I need to get a good grade. Everybody has to do that. That's a little bit too generic. We need to know something a little bit more that a universal audience would actually gain or learn from reading your particular topic, about your topic. So if you look at this model example, it's from a student in the past. I've just sort of changed the date to our due date. But the only thing really missing is you're going to need to have, your last name and a page number. I couldn't really do that here because it's on the first part of this document. So it should say Smith 1. And then if I went to page 2, it'd be Smith 2, right? But everything else is sort of in order. You want to have your title as research paper proposal, and then you want to sort of give a tentative paper title to your actual research paper. Now, again, just like your thesis, between now and the 28th of April, I know this is going to change. But again, I would like to know what the title of your potential research paper is going to be. And then if you look, each paragraph, we have 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, and 4. Well, how do we get the paragraphs? Well, again, 4 questions, your answers develop and make up the 4 paragraph answers that you have. So if you look, you're probably going to have about 2 pages, page and a half, roughly, 500 words or so. Each one of these paragraphs, because they represent the answer to your question, is worth 25 points. So if you only answer the first 3 and don't give me a 4th paragraph, the highest possible grade that you can make, granted that you got your spelling and your grammar and everything correct, would be a 75. So make sure that you answer all 4 questions and you make a paragraph or so out of each one of these particular, your answers becomes a paragraph. And that's usually what I tell you to do here. The proposal really should be one of the easier assignments that you do this semester in this particular class, because it is fairly short. It doesn't take a whole lot of time once you get a research paper topic in mind, and it really starts to get the ball running as it relates to thinking about your paper topic, thinking about getting the research, not waiting around until things happen. Because again, you're going to actually everybody's going to have a different research paper topic, and they should. That's why I don't believe in giving everybody, especially 20 or 25 students, the same research paper topic. So you're going to have to go out and do the work. You're going to have to go out and read your sources. You're going to have to go out and take notes on your sources. You're going to have to go out and highlight quotes that you want to use or paraphrasing that you want to use. This is where you take what you sort of learned the first 8 weeks of class and what you should have learned maybe in your high school English classes as it relates to research, and you really start to apply it to the last 8 weeks. So will it be challenging? Yes. It will be challenging if you don't know what you're doing. It will be challenging if you don't ask questions. It will be challenging if you procrastinate. It will be challenging if you just sort of half-ass this stuff. Because, I mean, the grade is not going to be, there's going to be no mercy on the grade. I mean, if you didn't do well on a particular, proposal or the annotated bib or the actual research paper, the numerical grade is not going to show you too much mercy. That's why I say if you need help, now's the time to start asking for the help, because time just keeps ticking and waits for nobody, and we have to move on. So if you get hung up somewhere early on, we need to sort of untangle that as much as possible. But for the most part, as it relates to you going to the library, you doing your own research, and you reading these 6 sources, that's going to be up to you. You're going to have to read that stuff and take your notes and highlight stuff that you want to quote. I can be here of guidance, right? I can help you where I can, but I can't write the paper for you, nor can I read, 25 students, each one of those 6 sources. You're just going to have to sort of do that at that point. Again, if you take a little bit of this particular assignment and project, ultimately, the overall scheme of the project, take a little bit each day, it won't seem like it's just caving in and overwhelming on you. If you wait until the 20th to try to do this, then it can be kind of stressful. The same thing with the annotated bibs. It's just going to start getting stressful the more times you wait to start doing some of these things now. You just don't have the luxury to do that. So that's the proposal. Again, that's due on the 20th, which is next Sunday. The annotated bibs, again, there's going to be 3 of those that are going to be sectioned out, and we talk a little bit more about when they're going to be due and how to go about structuring those. There's a specific way that you want to format your annotated bibs, and it deals with your sources. So after the 20th, if you haven't started doing any research, you need to start doing research, because the first annotated bib that comes up that following Sunday deals with 2 of your scholarly sources. So this stuff is going to be rolling, right? That's why I'm saying you don't want to sort of get lazy at this point, especially heading into spring break or coming back from spring break. That's usually the issue I see. I see folks go on spring break week 13, and some folks just disappear, meaning they never come back week 14 for whatever reason. And they see their grade, become a 0 May 5th. The other type of students I see, they do come back from spring break. Their body is sort of there in the seat, or the body is sort of there, checking stuff online, but the brain is still back down in Panama City, enjoying a Mai Tai or something. They're not there anymore. And they start to see their grades slip really fast, and to the point where it could be a 0 come May 5th. The other thing that we're going to talk about as we get closer, that you've probably heard in the past in other classes, is plagiarism. We talked about that, I think, early on in some of these essays. There's information in your syllabus about it. I know we covered it week 1, but you don't want to plagiarize the research paper, right? The first offense, automatically a 0. Second offense, you fail the class, and possibly get booted out or suspended from this college. That really goes with any assignment. So you don't want to plagiarize essay 3 or essay 4 or the proposal. Just to sort of bring that up again, that's why we're going to talk about how to go about properly citing, using MLA 9 format, documentation, the works cited, how to do in-text citation, parenthetical citation, that type of stuff as it relates to quoting stuff from your sources. You just want to be wary of that. Cheating is cheating. You get caught, you get a 0. You get caught twice, you fail the class, no matter what your grade is. So please don't get caught up in that. Don't buy a paper from some of these paper mills. online, and we talk a little bit more about that. You've probably seen them before. If not, I'll show you a couple of them that you don't want to. I mean, you don't want to do that regardless, because you don't know who's writing the paper. And once they get your credit card information or your debit information, they can take that and clear your bank account up or run up your credit really fast. And sometimes you won't know it until months and weeks after. It's happened for, to various students in the past. So I just don't want, you to get caught up in that. Otherwise, that's all I really have. Like I said, next week we will talk a little bit more about the annotated bibs and then get really ready for our library orientation. I hope everybody is doing really well as it relates to SA4. Send me drafts if you need help with that. Go ahead and start thinking about picking a research paper topic so you can go ahead and start on the proposal. A lot of this stuff too, you don't necessarily have to wait for deadlines. You can start getting started with a lot of this stuff and possibly turning stuff in earlier to give yourself a little bit of breathing room before the next component of the research paper. Or if you have, 3 or 4 other classes and you got stuff pressing in there, and then you can, have a little extra time working in those classes if your grade is not really well there as well. Otherwise, I should have SA3s. I'm going to start grading those. Some of y'all didn't turn those in, so just know, I mean, the 0 is there when you don't turn stuff in on time. Otherwise, I want to wish everybody a great week 9. Hopefully the weather seems like it's warming up. It's getting more spring-like weather now, and I hope everybody has a great week. Until I, read emails, or until next week when we have another lecture, I hope everybody has a great week. Thanks.